Hello friends, and welcome to another video. An essential part of every cosplay is getting the correct shoes for your costume, but let's face it, shoes are very often an afterthought. Sometimes the shoe is so absurd and fantasy style in its design that they don't exist readily available. Sometimes that particular style costs a lot of money or is tremendously uncomfortable. Or the worst part, sometimes you've actually ordered your proper shoes online and they haven't arrived in time for your event. And of course, you can't just pop down to the local shop and just buy a replacement. So, what's the option? Modifying an existing pair of shoes. Here's an easy way to show how an inexpensive, basic ballet flat can quickly be modified into 10 separate styles. And the best part of this is that each one of these modifications can be done incredibly quickly, so it's perfect for a last-minute solution. Okay, here's what you'll need. Your classic ballet flat. I picked this very cheap pair up from my local Kmart for only $4. What a bargain! Your standard sewing gear like sewing pins and snips or scissors. A sewing needle, preferably a nice strong one. Strong thread. I recommend using polyester. Personally, I like using heavy duty thread because I've had fabric and leather that failed before this thread actually broke. A thimble. With the thickness of your shoes, you'll be grateful for using one of these, trust me. A pair of pliers. If your needle gets caught on the fabric of the shoe, you can easily pull it through with these. Your chosen lacing. Some of it might be ribbon, but a lot of what I'll be using in this tutorial will be elastic. And a lighter to seal off your lacing ends. This particular pair of shoes will be easy enough to sew through since it's mostly made of canvas. However, if your shoe's fabric is particularly thick, like leather, I recommend handling the needle mostly with your pliers. This will save you a lot of heartache in the future and painful fingertips, I promise. The reason I use elastic to modify my shoes is simple, because it's highly versatile and great for those quick shoe modifications. It's comfortable to wear, accessible, and you can slide the shoes on and off quickly. It's relatively inexpensive, easy to source locally, and comes in a variety of thicknesses and sizes. And not only can you buy elastic in different colours, it's also dyeable, so you can make the straps whatever colour you'd like to match the fabric of your shoes. When cutting ribbon or elastic, you will need to use a lighter to seal off the ends. Doing this prevents the lacing from fraying when you wear the shoe and gives it less of a chance of coming undone. Before we get into the tutorial, let's talk about safety, especially when it comes to sealing the ends of your elastic and ribbon. Polyester material, such as ribbon and elastic, are made of plastic and therefore release fumes when burnt. These fumes should not be inhaled as they are toxic. When using a lighter on these materials, make sure to wear a proper safety respirator mask like this one. Ensure you have the proper working filters equipped as well. And also ensure that you're in a well-ventilated room with open windows to reduce the fumes in your crafting space. I'm going to show you an example of what happens when polyester fabric is exposed to flame for too long. Now watch closely. There. You see all that black, dangerous, toxic smoke? The fumes could be in your lungs if you're not careful enough. So just to reiterate, polyester is plastic. Plastic is toxic when burned, so please be careful and wear the appropriate PPE. Okay, now with the safety explained and all of our materials gathered, let's begin. The Mary Jane is your classic, quintessential cosplay shoe. This classic type of shoe is very common and popular and very easy to make. Here's how to go about it. First, figure out where you want your elastic's position to be. Make sure not to make the elastic too high on the shoe or it'll dig into your ankle. Make sure that when you mark the position of the elastics on either side of the shoe that it's symmetrical. Find out how long you want your elastic to be and then trim it down to size. use your lighter to singe the ends of your elastic so it doesn't fray. Then it's just a matter of sewing the straps on either side with your needle and thread. To make the look even more realistic, you can add some hardware to the elastic on the outside edge of the shoe before you sew your elastic down, like these small buckles. The great thing about modifying your own shoe is that you can make it look exactly how you want. So you can make the strap as thick or as thin as you want and position it as high or as low as you'd like. And that's the first shoe modified, the Mary Jane. For some of the other shoes, you might have to refer back to these instructions because the beginning of them are based on this style. On to the next shoe. The T-strap shoe starts off with a basic Mary Jane strap across the front, then with an additional strap running down the center to form the letter T. First, we'll modify the shoe by following the previous instructions to create a Mary Jane strap. Then, measure the distance between the strap across the shoe and the bottom edge down the middle. Make sure to give yourself plenty of space and not to make this strap too short. Take this new strip of elastic and once you've sealed the edges with your lighter, form a loop at the top of the strap, sewing it down to the strap of your Mary Jane with the raw edge facing underneath. Now here you can either leave the loop loose so it can move by itself, or you can tack it down to the middle of the Mary Jane strap. Then you want to take the other end of the strap and sew it down to the front of the shoe, once again hiding the raw end underneath. You want to make sure not to make this T-strap too short, or as you're wearing it, it will pull down tightly and it will look a bit funny. Using your needle and thread, finish this shoe by tacking that middle strap down. And there you go, another shoe modified. My personal preference is to actually tack the top of the T-strap where it meets the joint, because I usually find that the strap likes to move around on its own accord when I wear them. But as always, it's a personal choice. On to the next design. This shoe is similar to a Mary Jane, however instead of sewing one strap across the front, we're sewing two straps and they're crossing over each other at the front to form an X shape. Start by cutting two straps of elastic of the same length and seal the ends with your lighter. Because of this unusual design, for the best results I recommend pinning the straps down on either side of the shoe first and then trying it on to make sure it's comfortable. Make sure, as always, that the straps are symmetrical on either side of the shoe. Once the straps are pinned, make sure that the straps are sitting perfectly crossed at the front. If they're not, you may have to shift them around a little. Then once again, it's just a matter of getting your needle and thread and sewing them down. For these kinds of shoes that have crossover straps, I find they look a lot better and natural if you mirror the straps on the other shoe. So for example, if the inside strap goes over one side, make sure the same goes for the other side too. Okay, on to shoe number 4. This shoe has two ribbons sewn on either side of the shoe that tie in the middle into a bow. You can use any thickness of ribbon for this, but I usually find that a nice thicker width of ribbon instead of a thinner one turns out into a cuter, chunkier bow in the end. Cut 2 equal lengths of ribbon and, like the elastic, use your lighter to seal the ends of them to stop them from fraying. When cutting your lengths of ribbon, you want to make sure that you have enough ribbon to tie a bow at the front. Mark on the shoe where you'd like them to sit and then pin them into place to make sure that you're happy with the position. Once you're happy with where they sit, use your needle and thread to sew them to either side of the shoe. You can then modify the ribbon to how you like, for example shaping the tails into points. If you want to make sure that your bow doesn't undo while you're wearing it, try putting a few stitches through the knot to keep it in place permanently. And as an additional tip, try using better ribbon than what I found in my stash. The ribbon I had in the stash was a very stiff acetate and it crumpled something nasty and did not want to stay in a bow. This style of shoe gives a simple, cartoony style, laced up look, which is incredibly easy to achieve. We're going to approach this shoe like the first style, which was the Mary Jane, where the strap goes across the front opening. However, unlike the Mary Jane, we're going to do multiple straps. Firstly, you'll want to figure out how many straps you want to go across your shoe. For this example, we'll do 4 straps with slightly thinner elastic. Mark on your shoe the even spacing for the straps, making sure they're not too close together, and like the Mary Jane, making sure that the top strap isn't too close to your ankle. Cut the amount of elastic straps you'll need, and once again, seal off the ends with your lighter. Then, like we did with the Mary Jane shoe, stitch each strap down to the sides of the shoe. You'll end up with a stylized, laced-up shoe this way, without any extra lace ends. This style is a little trickier because you need to make sure that all the laces are evenly spaced, but I find that it's a lot simpler once you get the ruler involved. Also, I make sure to try the shoe on while all the straps are pinned together before sewing them down. Like the previous horizontal lace-up shoe, this style involves having straps cross over the front of the shoe, but this time in an X formation. So really it's a cross between shoe number 5 and shoe number 3, the cross-strap shoe. You want to start your shoe off just like shoe number 5, the horizontal lace-up shoe, by marking where you want your straps to go. Cut and prepare your elastics as usual, and sew one end of the straps where you've marked on the shoe. However, before you sew the other end down, cross the elastic over one another to form an X shape in the middle. Then pin and sew the other end of the straps down as usual with the raw edge underneath. With these last 2 shoe designs, you can add as few or as many laces as you'd like. I personally recommend going for thinner elastic just to be able to make the distinction between the laces more visible. Alright, on to the next design. The ankle strap shoe is another very popular style, but to make this shoe you will need a little bit of extra work. This style involves wrapping a strap around the ankle but still having it attached to the heel of the shoe. To begin, we firstly need to make a loop at the heel of the shoe for the ankle strap to fit through and to anchor on. I prefer using thinner elastic for this part. Figure out how thick your strap will be and make your loop the appropriate size. As usual, after cutting elastic, make sure to seal it with your lighter. Sew your loop to the inside of the heel. You may need to use your pliers to do this, even on simple canvas shoes, as the heel is a thicker, more reinforced area. And that's the first component done. This loop will be what attaches the ankle strap to the shoe. Now we measure how long the strap needs to be to go around your ankle. Be sure not to make it too loose, but also don't make it too tight. You don't want to cut off your circulation. Cut your elastic to the right length, and as usual, use your lighter to seal the ends. Feed the ankle strap through the heel loop before using your needle and thread to sew the strap closed. As an extra step, I like to stitch my ankle strap seam allowance to the heel loop itself. This is so the seam allowance doesn't spin around your ankle while the shoe's being worn, and the final look stays nice and clean looking. And look at that, yet another flawless modification. Alright, which shoe's next on the list? The inverted V-strap shoe is a bit of an unusual design, but it's always worth knowing how to modify an existing style to make particular looking shapes. We start off with an ankle strap shoe like the instructions before, and the rest is modified from there. Follow the previous instructions for the ankle strap shoe and make your ankle strap. Then you want to cut 2 lengths of elastic and heat seal them as usual. Sew them to the center of the ankle strap, whether they're sitting side by side or one on top of the other. Then extend the straps down to the bottom of the shoe and sew the ends underneath, forming the upside down V. Once again, the good thing about modifying your own shoes is that you can make these whatever length or position you'd like. However, like the T-strap shoe, try not to make these straps too short or they'll pull down the middle of the ankle strap. Okay, on to shoe number 9. The Gladiator lace-up shoe can be done in multiple ways, but is very striking and impressive to look at. You could also call this a ballerina style shoe for the way the straps are done, but unlike ballerinas, this is a very stylized shoe. Unlike the other shoe modifications, we're going to be using only thin ribbon instead of elastic for the laces. There are multiple ways of starting the shoe at the ankle. You can either sew the ribbon down to the shoe base itself at the back of the heel, or you can make a loop at the back like you start off with an ankle strap shoe and feed the ribbon through it. For this demonstration, I'll be showing you using an ankle strap loop. Unspool your length of ribbon first and then figure out where the middle of it is. Make sure you have plenty of ribbon available, because if this strap is going around your leg multiple times, you'll want to have plenty of ribbon for it. Also, don't forget to seal the ends with your lighter. Feed the lace through the loop or stitch it to the back of the heel, and then you can tie the laces in whatever way you prefer. Whether you circle at the ankle first or begin to crisscross them directly from the front, you can alter the way these straps are however you like. Since these laces are made out of slippery ribbon, I recommend securing them when they're worn so they don't slip down and puddle around your ankles with movement. You can either adhere them to your bare leg using non-toxic adhesives like eyelash glue or fashion tape, or if you're wearing stockings, hand tacking them in place. And now this one is done, we are onto our final shoe. This shoe is almost exactly like the Gladiator style we've just made, but with a few extra steps, since the laces extend all the way down to the bottom edge of the shoe and cross over like a corset lacing. Firstly, we're going to make some loops. You'll want to make one for the back of the heel like the ankle strap shoe, and as many as you'd like for the sides of the shoe, depending on how many times you want your laces to cross across the front. I'm going for only one cross, so I'll make 2 extra loops, one for each side of the shoe. Sew your loops into place, making sure they're even on both sides. Decide where you want your ribbon to begin on your shoe. For my example, I'll be sewing the ends here, a little ways away from one another at the front. But depending on how you want your shoe to look, you can also sew them in the middle, or wherever you want them to start. Cross the ribbons over one another and pull them through the loops on the sides of the shoe. Cross them again and pull them through the ankle loop. This might be easier done when they're worn. And to finish the look, continue crossing the ribbons over and tie them off when you're happy with the height. Like the previous Gladiator shoe, I recommend adhering the laces to your leg with body-safe adhesive or tacking them in place if you're wearing stockings. Especially if the laces are only supposed to go halfway up your leg and don't have anywhere to anchor to, like the dip in your knee after your calf. And that's it! Who could have guessed that one simple, humble shoe can easily turn into 10 different styles using only needle and thread, elastic, ribbon, and a little bit of time and ingenuity. This is a great way to make yourself some comfortable, easy wear shoes that have a little bit of extra pizzazz, or to whip up a more detailed costume component in a pinch. Not only that, but modifying your shoes helps with accessibility and is relatively inexpensive, simple to do, and without having to sacrifice accuracy. So which one of these styles that we made today was your favourite? Thank you so much for watching my video. If you're interested in seeing more tutorials, please like, comment and subscribe to my channel, or follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Have a great day and happy crafting!